Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got an electrifying topic that is making waves in the Formula One world. You know the name, Max Verstappen, the man who's dominated the sport, winning championship after championship. But behind the scenes, there's some serious drama brewing between Max and the FIA. This isn't just a minor disagreement, it's something that could change the entire trajectory of Max's career. You might be wondering, is this beef with the FIA serious enough to make Max walk away from Formula One sooner than anyone expected? Well, you'll want to stick around to the end of this video because I'm about to break down all the twists and turns that could lead to an earth-shattering exit. Max has thrown down some bold statements that hint at an early retirement, and if you think he's bluffing, think again. This could be a defining moment not just for him, but for the sport as a whole. So buckle up, because this is going to be one wild ride. Let's dive into the juicy details. Max Verstappen has found himself at odds with the FIA once again, and this time, it's over something that's got fans and drivers alike raising their eyebrows: his use of foul language during a press conference. Now, we all know that emotions run high in motorsports, especially when you're pushing 300 kilometers per hour and racing for championships. But the FIA seems to be cracking down on even the smallest slip-ups. In recent months, the governing body hasn't held back on penalizing drivers for their words as much as their on-track behavior. Max, being the fierce competitor that he is, didn't take this lightly. He's already hinted that these kinds of penalties are speeding up his plans to retire from the sport sooner than anyone anticipated. And honestly, given how much he's achieved, who could blame him? With 3 world titles under his belt and a 4th on the horizon in a thrilling fight with Lando Norris, Max has cemented his legacy. Yet, the fire that once burned so brightly in him seems to be flickering as the weight of these constant penalties begins to wear him down. In fact, Max has made it clear that he's not interested in racing into his 40s, unlike some other drivers. But after this latest run-in with the FIA, where he was hit with community service penalties for something neither he nor the FIA could fully explain, it seems like the clock on his career might be ticking faster than we thought. Now let's talk about how this all unfolded. After receiving his penalty, Max took a bold step and refused to stay quiet. Instead of answering questions during the official press conference, he moved outside, surrounded by a crowd of eager reporters. Naturally, one of the first questions was whether this latest incident with the FIA was affecting his future in Formula One. Max didn't mince words, his response was clear and direct. "Oh, for sure. Situations like this definitely have an impact on my future in the sport. When you can't be yourself, or you constantly have to deal with these kinds of silly things, it takes the fun out of it." It's no secret that Verstappen is a fierce competitor, but like anyone, there's only so much he's willing to put up with. He went on to explain that while winning races and championships is incredible, once you've done it all, you want to enjoy the sport without unnecessary drama. And that's where things get interesting. Max is saying, in no uncertain terms, that this constant battle with the FIA over trivial issues is draining his energy and passion for the sport. He's at a point in his career where dealing with such distractions feels exhausting. Of course, racing at the highest level is intense, with every driver pushing themselves to the limit. But when the focus shifts from racing to handling what he calls silly issues, it becomes another reason for him to consider walking away from the sport. It's clear that Max values his authenticity, and if the regulations and penalties keep clashing with who he is as a person and a driver, he may decide that it's not worth it to stay much longer. This isn't the first time Max has hinted at an early exit from Formula One. Over the past year, he has expressed growing frustration with various aspects of the sport. One of the biggest factors weighing on his mind is the increasing number of races on the calendar. Formula One is expanding fast, with 24 races scheduled for the current season, and rumors suggest that number could rise to 25 or even 26 in the near future. While more races mean more excitement for fans, it's a whole different story for the drivers and their teams. Max, along with several other drivers, has voiced concerns that this relentless expansion isn't sustainable in the long run. It's not just the drivers who are impacted, a massive crew travels with them to every race. These people, mechanics, engineers, and support staff, are constantly on the road, sacrificing a huge part of their personal lives to keep the show running. Max knows that this intense schedule puts a strain on everyone involved, and it's not something that can be maintained forever. It's one thing to have the physical endurance to race, but the mental and emotional toll of such a packed calendar is something entirely different. Max has even started giving shorter responses during press conferences, a subtle protest against the constant demands placed on him by the FIA. When asked why his answers had become so brief, Max didn't hold back. He explained that he found the recent penalties, especially the community service requirement, absolutely ridiculous. Why should I give full answers when it's so easy to get a fine or penalty for something trivial? He said. He also hinted that it would be easier to just keep his mouth shut and do interviews elsewhere, away from the official FIA press conferences. The situation with Max and the FIA seems to be evolving into a standoff, and it's clear that this battle is taking a toll on his career. But this isn't just about Max. The tension between drivers and the governing body is something that's been brewing for a while. Max's frustration highlights a larger issue in the sport: how much control the FIA should have over the driver's behavior, both on and off the track. For Max, the recent penalties, especially those tied to behavior and language, seem to be crossing a line. He's a racer, and racers thrive on adrenaline and emotion. To suddenly police that aspect of their personalities seems not only unnecessary but counterproductive. What's interesting is that Max isn't alone in feeling this way. Many of his fellow drivers have spoken out in support of him, including Lewis Hamilton, one of the most respected figures in the sport. Hamilton, reflecting on his own experiences, admitted that he would never have agreed to the kind of community service Max is being asked to perform. "It's a bit of a joke," honestly, Hamilton said, pointing out that mistakes happen in the heat of the moment. Even a 7-time world champion like Hamilton finds the FIA's punishment heavy-handed, and he's not shy about saying so. The backlash against the FIA's decisions is growing, and it's not just from Max. A report recently surfaced suggesting that many drivers are angry about the penalty handed to Max because it's something that simply can't be controlled. Emotions run high in racing, and in those intense moments, drivers aren't always going to filter their words. Whether it's frustration with a fellow driver, a bad strategy call, or something else that goes wrong, the heat of the moment often leads to swearing or emotional outbursts. In fact, Max himself has made a very compelling argument. He explained that during a race, drivers are pushing themselves to the absolute limit, sometimes reaching speeds of over 300 kilometers per hour. In such high-pressure situations, mistakes happen, whether it's their own fault, a teammate's, or a strategic error from the pit crew. After giving everything in a race, it's natural for emotions to spill over, and that's when swearing happens. According to Max, it's not something that can be easily controlled, nor is it directed as an offense towards anyone specific. It's simply a release of the intense pressure they are under. What's more, Max pointed out that in other sports, like football or basketball, athletes are rarely put under the same level of scrutiny. Sure, swearing happens there too, but it's not captured by microphones at every turn. In Formula One, drivers are constantly mic'd up, which means everything they say in the heat of the moment is broadcast. Max believes that part of the problem is the way the sport is covered. The broadcast captures and amplifies moments that in other sports would go unnoticed or even be censored. He suggested that if the broadcast wasn't so keen on catching every word, the issue might not even exist. Max's frustration goes beyond the swearing itself. He sees it as part of a larger issue with how the FIA is trying to control the behavior of the drivers. He feels that there are too many rules that limit their ability to express themselves naturally. As he put it, everyone swears. Some people more than others, but it happens for Max. The FIA's attempts to micromanage these moments of raw emotion take away from the authenticity of the sport. Max's frustration didn't stop there. He pointed out that drivers in other sports aren't followed around by microphones all the time, so their heated words often go unheard. In Formula One, however, every word, every outburst is captured and broadcast, often for the sake of entertainment. He feels this puts unnecessary pressure on drivers to watch every word they say, even in the most stressful moments. Max's view is that if swearing is such an issue, then maybe the broadcast shouldn't include these moments at all, rather than penalizing drivers for something that happens in the heat of competition. It's not hard to see why Max is so fired up about this. He's not just protesting for himself, he's standing up for all the drivers who feel that these penalties are becoming too much. And he's not alone in this fight. Even outside the official press conference, reporters flocked to Max, eager to hear his take on the situation. It shows just how big his influence is in the sport. His voice carries weight, and when he speaks out, people listen. What's even more striking is how other drivers have rallied around him. There's a growing sense of unity among the drivers on this issue, and it's clear that many feel the same way as Max. They've seen how these penalties are affecting him, and they fear that it could happen to them too. For Max, it's not just about this one penalty, it's about the direction the sport is headed. He doesn't want Formula One to lose the raw, unfiltered passion that makes it exciting, and for that reason, he's willing to fight back, even if it means risking his relationship with the FIA. The FIA's stance on this issue has certainly stirred up plenty of debate, and Max's candid comments have only added fuel to the fire. But as much as he's frustrated, the FIA isn't backing down either. FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem has been vocal about his views on swearing in the sport, arguing that it sets a bad example, especially for younger fans. He pointed out that many children watch Formula One with their families, and swearing isn't something parents want their kids to hear while watching their favorite drivers in action. He added that, as someone who has competed and won championships in rally racing, he understands the pressure of the sport but still believes drivers should maintain professionalism. Max, however, wasn't buying into that argument. He responded by saying that swearing is a part of life and that sooner or later, children are going to encounter it, whether their parents like it or not. At a certain point in their lives, kids are going to swear anyway, Max said. He pointed out that everyone swears when they're filled with adrenaline, and the only difference in Formula One is that it's caught on microphone. In other sports, athletes aren't constantly mic'd up, so these moments of frustration don't make it to air as often. According to Max, the issue isn't with the drivers but with how the sport is broadcast. Max went on to argue that much of this comes down to entertainment. He believes that these moments are broadcast to add drama and keep viewers engaged, but they also put the drivers under even more scrutiny. It's a tough balance. On one hand, fans want the excitement and raw emotions, but on the other, the drivers don't want to be penalized for showing those very emotions. Max's take is that the FIA could easily avoid this problem by simply choosing not to broadcast those moments, instead of imposing penalties. It's clear that Max Verstappen's influence in Formula One extends far beyond the racetrack. His outspoken stance on this issue has captured the attention of fans, fellow drivers, and even the FIA itself. Max's willingness to challenge the governing body shows that he's not afraid to stand up for what he believes is right, even if it risks further penalties. This boldness has only increased his standing among fans and drivers alike, who see him as someone fighting for the freedom of the sport. But while Max has made his position clear, the FIA seems just as determined to enforce its rules. President bin Sulayem has argued that drivers are not rappers and therefore shouldn't behave like them, an unfortunate statement that stirred up even more controversy. Lewis Hamilton, in particular, called out the racial undertones of that remark, pointing out that most rappers are black, making the comment feel particularly inappropriate. Hamilton suggested that such statements reflect outdated stereotypes and are harmful to the image of the sport. It's another example of how tensions between the FIA and the drivers are growing, with many questioning whether the governing body is overreaching in its efforts to control the drivers' behavior. For Max, this clash with the FIA is about more than just swearing. It's about the direction of Formula One as a whole. He doesn't want to see the sport become overly sanitized, where drivers can't express their true emotions. At the same time, the FIA is focused on maintaining a certain level of professionalism, especially with a global audience that includes families and children. The question is, will these growing tensions push Max to an early retirement, and if so, will it set a precedent for other drivers feeling the same pressure? With all this swirling around, it's no wonder that fans and pundits alike are on the edge of their seats, wondering what will happen next. Could the sport be on the verge of losing one of its brightest stars because of internal politics? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: Max's future in Formula One is as uncertain as ever, and the outcome could reshape the sport for years to come. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out the next video that's popping up on your screen right now. And that's a wrap on today's video. What do you think? Could we really see Max Verstappen walk away from Formula One earlier than anyone expected? Or will the FIA and Max find some common ground before things escalate even further? This situation is heating up fast, and it's clear that the future of the sport could look very different depending on how this all plays out. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so don't forget to drop a comment below and let us know where you stand. Are you Team Max, or do you think the FIA has a point? And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the latest Formula One drama, Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more updates from the world of racing. Turn on those notifications so you'll be the first to know when our next video drops. Until next time, stay fast, stay passionate, and keep your engines revving. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.